But the whole thing about Nora, I knew as soon as they introduced her, I was like, this is not going to end well. Because as soon as we saw her, all excited to meet her father and all that, I'm like, okay. Barry messes up the timeline for breakfast. Like, I'm going to have a bagel. I'm going to have a glass of orange juice. I'm going to mess up the timeline. Okay, that's what he does. But his child going back to meet her dad and, mom didn't tell me. And then she put this thing in me that negated my speed. How that whole thing played out. Then she ends up de-resing in her arms. And I'm like, but y'all have established anybody can come from any point in time or any timeline and come back. And then, but the paradox of all paradoxes, because I was so done when Nora is there for her own birth, I'm like, wait just a minute.
Yeah. She should have.
And then they lampshaded in the episode, and they say, "Oh yeah, well, I guess this is a problem, but oh well, we're not going to do anything about it. We're the writers. We don't care."
They should have been sitting in the waiting room and saying, has the baby come yet? And Nora's like, I don't think. And then she's just gone. And they're like, yep, she's here.
That's right. There is no sci-fi story world where meeting yourself is a good idea. Now, every one of them deals with it differently, but you're not supposed to meet a past or future version of yourself and come out unscathed. And she's just hanging out, chilling, drinking some coffee, waiting for her mom to have her. I'm like, is anybody getting a headache from watching this? Because that don't just know. And then
telling her she's so cute.
From season 3, everything became Barry's fault, no matter what it is. And so it's only wrong if he does it. If everybody else can do it, to their heart's content. But Lord sakes, I mean, even Oliver in the episode he came back in season 9. What's the first thing he says to him? Barry, what did you do now? Even then, automatically assumes that Barry did something wrong again because it's all his fault. It was never anybody else's fault.
Well, in the Silver Age comics, they had an out for all of that. And, Superman time traveled all the time to the past. Yeah, he went always to the future with the Legion of Superheroes. But, they made a point of when he went to the past, if he went to a place where he had already been or already existed, he phantomed out. You could observe it, but you couldn't interact because two people could not coexist at the same time.
Right. I mean, it's basic states of matter. You can't be in two places at the same time, and the same thing applies to time travel. But as you guys have wisely said repeatedly, the rules don't apply. The rules don't apply to Barry. They apply to everybody else, or the rules apply to Barry, but not anybody else. I mean, that's really the end of that.
Well, if you're going to
bad world building.
If you touch yourself, you turn into a little puddle of mud with teeth. That was a time cop thing. And, Nora basically got a new birthday. I'm like, how did y'all miss that having her here and having everything that you went through? That's not the original timeline. If we didn't had 14 since then, so everything about Nora should have been different. And then I'm like, no, you don't get to hold yourself. No, you don't get to talk to yourself. And here's the question. How does that not freak you out? What if you guys should go back and your mom delivers you and you hold baby you? How does that not freak you out?
Well, it freaks me out.
Totally
in the first place that it was Nora.
They had Flashpoint. They already did Flashpoint. They established that if you change the timeline, there's consequences and there's ripples and there's going to be things that happen. But
and time race. Don't forget the time race because they only come out for Barry.
Yeah.
Or Hunter.
They decided that they thought this was funny. They thought it was, a little funny touch to add in there. They want to make sure that we know. I really wanted it to be a boy. I was like, just really mess it up. Just be like, oh no,
it should have been a boy.
It's kind of like what happened with Cable, like when baby Cable was born, and Rachel was expecting it to be her. Yeah,
it should have been a boy and a girl. It should have been Dawn and Don Allen, who were the children of the Flash and Barry, and that would have, when they brought out the baby girl, I was waiting for the doctors to say there's another one, and that would have given us the line that we knew was coming. We're going to need a lot more diapers.
Right. That's right. Because we need access.
Well, and I remember
it would have been stealing another thing from Wally, though, because Wally's the one that has the twins.
Yeah, but Barry had twins.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Barry and Iris had Dawn and Don Allen, the Tornado twins, and then Dawn married Dawn married Melody Thawne.
Right.
Mhm.
And she had Bart.
Yeah, but by making us meet Nora as excess, right? So having her meet that first throws that whole thing off.
I'm a big Iris defender. I love Iris on this show. I think she's a fantastic character. I think she really kept the show going. I think they obviously focused on her way too much in between. I mean, way too much. They just brought too much of the spotlight on her. She was always best when she was there more as a supporting cast member instead of like being the driving force of the entire team. They way overused her. But I felt like in the last season, they kind of pulled back on that a little bit. And she became like, more of getting back to like normal Iris things. She was just doing the reporting and all that. She's a really different character from the comic. She's totally different. But within the context of the show, they destroyed her character, right? Like even in the context of the show, she had her own, job. She had her own world. She had her own career. She had all these things going. Then all of a sudden they said, nope, you're just going to be like everybody else. You're just going to be a member of Team Flash, and you're going to be like every other cog in the wheel that just shouts into the microphone and tells Barry to run. I mean, her entire character just became like everybody else. She basically became Wells.
And anybody knows me know that I was always about Barry and Caitlin, and I haven't changed. I haven't changed my mind. You will never change my mind about that. But if we have to have Iris, let her be actual Iris. Because actual Iris is interesting, and actual Iris brings a backstory that's fascinating to follow. But instead, it felt more like, remember when Iris had her little Iris team, like the team girls, the Boss Babe team, and when she was working and getting all this stuff together. And I'm like, that's cool, but that should not be. Why can't we have Barry and Iris at concert with her development as a character? Why does it have to be Barry's off super speed losing and Iris is off, doing her Boss Babe thing, and it felt like two different shows for a very long time. Now, the one twist that would have been good that I really liked, I was surprised at how much I liked it, was Iris and Wally as a team. It was like Super Speed X-Files. They, I think the actors have I think Keenan and Candace have such a bond and a rapport that energy, that chemistry came through. And I'm like, for the few minutes they had y'all out as a team, that was off the chain. Right. So if we had a spinoff, I would have watched Iris and Wally, or if we had a B story, I would have happily watched Iris and Wally doing a detective super speed thing.
Yeah. I give Candace all the
definitely.
World.
Go ahead, Steve.
The character I wasn't a fan of. But yes, I agree, Ziggy. I take nothing away from the actress, and I never have. I mean, as a person, as an actress, she's doing her job, and she's doing it the best she can. She's doing it how she's written, and that's all you can ask for. But I'll jump on what you said, Dave. I really enjoyed that arc too, and honestly, I was disappointed when Flashpoint wasn't at least half a season. When it was one episode of one and done, and then just totally messed everything else up. That was kind of difficult.
Right.
I feel like Flashpoint should have lasted at least half a season.
Absolutely. They threw away.
I thought it was going to. I was more like, how could it not? And people keep forgetting, which springboards me to the next thing. People keep forgetting the only reason Caitlin became Killer Frost was because of Flashpoint.
That's right.
Remember that before Barry did that Wells had a machine that tested metahuman levels, and Caitlin tested fully human. It wasn't until Flashpoint where we got that scene where right at the end, she's holding up her hands and they're frosting, her ice powers are emanating. That's the only reason Killer Frost exists in this version of Caitlin. Then we find out she's actually an experiment. So, I mean, if they had ever made up their minds and just picked an arc, that both Caitlin and Frost probably could have been done better justice than what they got. Right. I personally agree with the idea of the Jekyll and Hyde nature, the Bruce Banner Hulk nature of Caitlin and Killer Frost. That was better. When they started communicating and she's my sister and I know how you feel, I was like, No. Every time they did that, I heard the theme song from Prince. Dun, 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 dun. I'm like, really? That's what this is now? So I'm
but I will still say the worst Caitlin moment.
That was good.
the worst Caitlin moment for me is when she's on the phone at the end of the episode, at the end of the finale, and she's talking to her mom, and I'm like, why couldn't she just be talking to Cisco? Just be talking to Cisco.
Right. How can we have a series finale without a mention of Cisco? I will remind our viewers that Cisco is the one that created Barry's uniform. You remember that? He became the Chloe Sullivan in terms of villain naming, but we'll give him that because he was still a fun character and much less annoying than Chloe. Don't get me started. But
can we talk about the cameos that weren't cameos at the end of this, because it ties into the way that I want to talk about in a little bit on who should have died in this episode.
Okay, yes, we can.
Who were these people at the end? I know some of them. When Barry's like, "I'm going to choose the next heroes," I'm like, "You don't even know these people."
Why not give it to Wally West? That's your legacy right there.
Well, and based on your previous season's trust of people in your life, you don't have a great track record. You know, you had Harrison Wells, who turned out to be Eobard Thawne, your worst enemy, and then you immediately trusted Teddy Sears. You trusted the guy who claimed to be Jay Garrick, who turned out to be a bloodthirsty drug addict. Your record is not good in people that you randomly pick to trust with speed.
Have him meet them before, have an episode where he meets them.
Okay.
Right.
I didn't talk about this on Flash Out because I wanted to talk about it here. What Barry does is says to Iris, we need to have the courage to make this new world. And I thought that meant they were going to do something drastic with Nora and take her somewhere and have her raised by somebody that was a better Sultan of Speed. Instead, he runs by Carol Ferris's playing field again, teasing us again
Green Lantern
in
reference.
Story World. And then he lightning hurls some lightning all rando in the sky, and he picks people, like you said, that he didn't know and the audience didn't know. And I'm like, the lightning bolt's gonna hit him. They just gonna get speed, but you're not gonna be there to teach him. Jay Garrick would have never let you randomly bestow speed on people. And then the biggest kick in the face for me was Max Mercury. Max Mercury got probably the biggest speedster glow up, maybe next to Johnny Quick, that I've ever seen, because he became the oldest, the Sultan, the godfather of speed training, if you will, the one who knew all the secrets, knew all the secret places, all the loopholes, all the stuff about the Speed Force. He was actually the mysterious, almost Yoda figure.
He became Yoda.
He was the trained Bart.
Right, for the Speed family. And I'm like, how can you have 9 seasons of The Flash, and then you have Barry lightning throwing into the sky, and that's how Max gets the speed? I was like,
people writing this show watch Star Wars, like the sequel trilogy, right before they wrote the show, because this is straight out of The Last Jedi. It's The Last Jedi. It's the kid with the broom. It's choose any random person, and they're going to be able to do a good job as a Jedi, right? And you don't have to train them. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to think about the fact that you're just randomly giving these people powers. They're going to be heroes for sure. Why would they be heroes? Because they're random people, and random people are heroes, right? Like, you just assume that any random person on the street is heroic automatically. It's like, just choose one of your friends. Like, choose somebody you trust. You got all these people around you. Choose somebody that you know.
What that showed was that Barry could give speed through the lightning. And that is why the person who should have died at the end of this episode was Barry Allen. This should have been a knockdown. Hear me out. This should have been a knockdown, drag-out fight between Barry and Cobalt Blue, racing and speeding and throwing lightning to the point that Barry has never run this fast before. And what's happening? You've got red lightning happening in the skies. You've got Nora supposedly having grown up without her father. Why? Because Flash dies in red skies. And he goes so fast that he converts to energy. He's going back through time. He stops Cobalt Blue. He can't stop himself. He's a lightning bolt. You open up with the opening of season 1, episode 1, going through the window and hitting himself.
You do the Crisis on Infinite Earths thing.
Well, the other thing I was thinking when I saw that they gave it to, like when I saw them mention Max, and they threw the lightning, and then he's, a Native American, which he was in the stories, but then he's sitting on a motorcycle, obviously in current times, and I'm like, okay, so you just took the entire mythos of Max Mercury and just tossed it out the window, didn't you?
Yep.
Because he had such an interesting story. If you know his story, I'll throw it out here for anybody listening or watching later. His story was that he was a Native American who gained speed, generations back. Like he became, I think Windrunner was his name, and he tried to, Quicksilver, and he tried to race through. Like he would try very often. He would go fast enough that he hit the Speed Force, but he would bounce off of it and end up in another random time in the future, and never really able to get back to where he started from. So he'd appear kind of as these random points because he was never quite fast enough to run the way Wally did in the comics and actually ride the Speed Force and get where he wanted to go. He'd get to it and then kind of bounce off of it. But because of that, he had, as we've seen, several different names, and he had several different kind of generations he'd been a part of, and he had a knowledge that nobody else did because of that. There's no reason why you couldn't, as Dave said earlier, you couldn't put him earlier on in the show and kind of have him randomly show up throughout the show at different points, going, "Oh, Max, you're back," because he'll show up and then disappear, and then come back again with once again kind of this shaman Yoda-like knowledge of what to do. And they kind of shoehorn that into Wally when he goes to wherever he went and became kind of the Zen master of it. That was Max's role right from the beginning.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought was going to happen when Wally left, that Max was going to enter.
Yes.
Max was going to be like, you know what? I've been watching you guys for 3-4 years now. And let me tell you something. You're doing it all wrong. And he would have had, like you said, the mentorship role. But what RJ said, I think that's brilliant, and that is definitely comic accurate. But the only issue would have been, it would have been somewhat of a downer of the ending. And they were so determined to make this so sweet to, if you look at it too long, you get a cavity. So that type of, even though that's comic accurate, and even though it makes sense since we know that Barry's life is basically a lightning flash loop now, and we do the crisis ending, that would have satisfied us. But I think the rest of the viewing audience, especially with everything being about the family, and, because who I thought was going to die more than once on this show was Joe. We know that Earth 2 Joe did die, and that changed everything. But there were so many times where I thought Joe was over, because I kept thinking, who could they take out of the cast that would have the most impact if they died? And it was always Joe.
Right.
So if he makes it to the end and he's singing, we got to hear Jesse L. Martin, that lovely voice of his, he makes it to the end, and Nora's here, or Nora's holding herself, and Iris and, and Barry rolling their eyes about, the next one, more diapers, and super corny and super sweet and blah, blah, blah. Okay. I couldn't see them getting that much weight of an ending, even though everything you said I thought was powerful and comic accurate and makes more sense for Barry's life. But I could not see them doing it, if you're going to have a major sacrifice at the end of any arc, that sacrifice must be justified. If the story justifies it, we can process it better. But if it's just for the sake of it, then no, nothing about that is going to fly long term.
And I also think we got that with Ollie, right? I mean, Oliver Queen already did that arc with the sacrifice, and obviously kind of they cushioned it, right, at the end of it. But they already did that with him. Do we really want them to do that with Barry Allen as well?
I will say, here's the thing: love it or hate. I mean, there's a lot to dislike. There's a lot to like about the Arrowverse when you look at it as a whole. But I'll tell you this: when you branch it all together, for all the things that it did right or wrong, we've never gotten to see something like this on television before, ever.
True.
We've never gotten to see, crossovers like this ever. A whole group of heroes fighting the Dominators, for crying out loud. I mean, that we've never seen anything like that before. Seeing the Elseworlds crossover, Crisis on Earth X. I mean, when you put all these heroes together and you put together some of the crossovers and stories that they got to do, love it or hate it, it's really an incredible feat.
Those 5 episodes, that Crisis on Infinite Earths episodes, those were great. They were so much fun. The entire series leading up to that, all of those like pieces coming together within that, with all the different worlds and the multiverses and the crossovers. I love that stuff. That was fantastic. It was great. If they had just ended the entire Arrowverse right at the end of that, it would have been perfect.
Hey, HBO or Amazon or anybody with that big old budget, you need to get a Game of Thrones budget and make Kingdom Come.
Absolutely.
Yes. There you
Heck
go.
yes.
That would
Heck
break
yes.
the internet. That would break the world. You want your next hit? There it is. I just gave it to you right there. All right. I want to thank my guests for being on the Rant Room tonight. Thank you so much, Steve.
Yeah, glad to be here. First time meeting some of these people and others I know well, and it's good to chat Flash with all you guys.
Thanks so much, RJ.
Man, glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me on. It's a bit of a bittersweet moment because we've done this before with Stargirl and Flash, and I'm like, I need CW or HBO Max now to do something with this, just so we have an excuse to get back and rant some more.
Thank you so much, Mikey.
Hey, thank you guys for letting me sit in and join this group. Like I said, I've known some of you and some of you I'm meeting for the first time, but man, it's a pleasure, and y'all are a blast, and I love being able to just exchange ideas this way. So thanks for letting me join in here.
Thanks so much, Zig.
It's a pleasure seeing you guys, and obviously, I'm always willing to rant about anything. At the best I can rant. I enjoy things a bit too much sometimes, but Secret Invasion's right around the corner. I think we'll have lots to talk about when that comes too.
Oh, no doubt, no
Yeah,
doubt.
man.
You can find me on Twitter at DT2 Comics Chat. I'm on Twitter every day. Steve, where can we find you on Twitter?
Yeah, I'm at Shadewing. Yeah, that's my main account where I usually rant about various things. I also do comics and things like that. And for those promos, I'm under Revelation Comic.
RJ, where can we find you on Twitter and other social media?
We are criticalblast.com and at Critical Blast on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Mikey, where can we find you on social media?
Twitter, you can find me at the Mikey Flash. I'm usually RTing or saying goofy nonsense, but usually adding in my 2 cents. You can find me on SoundCloud, actually, as my music goes, for Speed Force Music. Just look for me there. Speed Force Music is on YouTube as well. And we have a little bit up on Spotify and Apple Music and all of that stuff as well. So if you're ever just in the mood to check it out, please do. I also do freelance music for anybody who wants it. So specifically in the comic medium. So if you're ever needing music for your shows or things like that, you know where I'm at.
Ziggy, where can we find you on social media?
Oh, I'm at Ziggy. I'm at Starlord Ziggy on TikTok, and then I'm under Ziggy or Mr. Joffrey on Twitter.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks to everybody that is watching this video. Please like and share. Don't forget to subscribe. So we'll see you on the next time, on the next episode of The Rant Room.